Hi everyone, Kim here at Olive City Homestead, and yesterday I was finally able to make the trip, the second trip, to the mountain valley town that I am considering moving to. And I've talked about this before on my channel, and I had mentioned in my last video that I wanted to go back, take some more footage, and explore some of the smaller towns round about there. However, what I'm going to show you first are just a couple of clips that I took the first time I went out to this area in northeastern California, and that was at the very end of August as opposed to now in the middle of October. So after these first few clips, I'll be back to explain what I did on this second trip that I took yesterday. Now, I did debate whether or not this type of video really had any interest for you all, since this is a gardening channel, but it is also a homesteading channel. And in exploring the area as I did both originally and then even more thoroughly yesterday, I go into a bit of why you might select this or that type of land. And in future videos, I'll go into more detail on that as well. But this video, along with my other road trip videos, also fulfills one of my goals, both personally and for this channel, which is to emphasize that nature therapy is so good for us. Definitely good for me. I know how much it does for me every time I go on one of these trips, even if it's just a few hours. It doesn't have to be a whole weekend. And so that alone, I believe, is the reason for you to watch this video. We're going to open up at a huge creek off of a river, and there's lots of mountains and trees, and just come along with me, and I hope you enjoy the ride as much as I did. Out on the road. Just came through the Sierra Nevada foothills here, going east from where I live toward a town that I am considering moving to. Has a much cooler climate, compared to where I live now. I'm in Zone 9B now, and instead of being in central Northern California, I'd be in eastern Northern California, and the climate would be zone, I believe it's 7. Varies depending on where I pick exactly. It's gorgeous out here. That's Bear Creek, right near the Feather River. Mountains all around. I'm at a pretty high elevation right now, and it's still warm being the end of August, and I'm not nearly as far as I'm intending to go. Another hour maybe. But this is a nice little view I wanted to share with you all. All right, let's get back on the road. A little bit of mountains up ahead. We'll see where it takes us. It's a busy road, but this is what it looks like heading into the town. I've just spent an hour walking around. It has a historic district and just enough modern conveniences to make everything easy. There's a hospital here, and it's just beautiful and 20 degrees cooler than where I just left. And now, having put a face to this town, I am so pleased. I really believe this is where I'm going to be moving and settling down, maybe for the rest of my life. Well, you can see that after that first trip, I was totally convinced that that mountain valley town is exactly where I was moving. And I definitely am going to be moving. People say when? Well, I'm putting my house and property up for sale in the spring. That's the plan. I need to do several things over the winter to make it ready for sale. And then it just depends on when it sells. If it sells in the first month or two, ideally, in my dreams, then I would immediately be looking for a place. And that would be fabulous. If, on the other hand, it takes a year or two, well, then that's what the timetable becomes. I am selling, as I've mentioned a few times in the past, due to a few different reasons. One being the heat, which I used to love, and now in my current health situation, which I have several chronic conditions, I no longer appreciate. 100 to 120 Fahrenheit throughout the summer is just too much for me, especially since I need to be outside. I love being outside. It's another reason is I have so much equity in my home that selling and moving somewhere where I'm getting land and then bringing in a much cheaper home is definitely going to save me a ton of money, and I would then be living mortgage free. And, I have to think about things like that, as we all do, going into our senior years, mine of which are coming sooner rather than later. I did take about a 6-week break though before going back to that area, and during that time I really thought about all the different options of how I could approach this, and I thought about broadening my horizons. If you watched my video last year when I went to Nevada with one of my sons on a trip, that's the other area I've been considering moving, and it's really only about an hour and a half southeast of the area in California that I'm looking now. They're very close together, very similar climates, and the only differences really are that the Nevada property is cheaper, but it is more desert, while the California property, though a little more expensive, has the trees and more easily available water. I could make either one work. And so I'm still open to both, but if I can find the type of land, the amount of land for the price I want in Northern California, then that's what I'm going to do. But what the 6 weeks also gave me time to realize is that there are a lot of small outlying towns and just areas, really more areas than towns, from this specific mountain valley town I looked at in those first clips. And those towns are all within an easy drive of that town and an easy drive from, say, Reno. So I would still have access to, larger stores and things when I needed it. But the land in the outlying areas is more readily available and for a cheaper price. So on my second trip yesterday, I looked at several of the properties that I had found online, not because, by the way, I think I'm going to buy any of those, because I'm not ready to buy right now. I don't have the money to buy right now. I have to sell before I can do that. However, researching and seeing what's available really helps me and would help anyone else looking for land to have an accurate picture of what is possible. And then going and seeing some of those places that I found online and actually going directly to those plots was eye-opening in many ways. Some of them were much better than they appeared online when you just read about them and looked at photos, and others, on the other hand, were much worse than they appeared online. So, or, not necessarily worse, but just very different. For instance, maybe the house was backed by a wonderful property, but right in front was the main highway. And though it's not too busy there, given the lack of population around there, still, I don't really want to be living right on the highway. That's just not something I'm looking for. So it really does pay to not only do the research online and see what's out there, but to look in outlying areas and then go see them for yourself. This way, when it does come time for me to buy, when I do have the money and I'm all set to go, I will know what areas I actually want to look in and what areas I've decided, for whatever reasons, I don't want to look in. And I'll know what types of properties I want to go see in person and ones I might just want to skip. Now, one other point is that I definitely have planned to go see this area every 5 or 6 weeks over this year. And that's because I want to know, what is it like all year long? I know what it's like in the height of summer heat because I went in August. And now I know what it's like at the very beginning of fall because I went during mid-October. But I want to know what it's like every part of the year. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to moving to a cooler climate instead of Zone 9B, it would be somewhere between Zone 6B and Zone 8A. That's quite a spread, I know, but it just depends what area I finally decide on. But Though that's a zone for gardening, it doesn't really give me the full picture. And even if I read it gets this much on average snow a year or this much on average rain a year, I want to see for myself, what does that make the place look like and feel like, and how are the roads at that time? And one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to moving to a different climate, a different zone, is so that I can get to finally experience different seasons. Around here, I really don't get that. And that's been okay up till now, but I am ready to have snow in the winter, less heat in the summer, and an actual spring and fall that are different from those two. And I did live, by the way, in Rochester, New York once for 2 years, so I do know what it's like to deal with snow in the winter. So I'm not completely oblivious to the issues that can bring, but I'm ready for it. Now, this area I'm looking at definitely has different climate than here, typically about 20 degrees cooler in the summertime than we are here, and in the winter also. Not necessarily 20 degrees cooler in the winter, but definitely much cooler, and it gets snow. Now, let's go take a look at how this area was, and boy did I have fun on this second trip that I took yesterday. So I'm driving through the mountains. You can see the road right up there. And this is just the beginning of them. Beginning of the Sierra Nevadas here. And there's the road I'm on going. You know how they do, twisty-turny. Through the Sierra Nevadas toward the mountain valley towns that I'm going to be exploring today. Gorgeous weather. It's about 60 degrees right now. Looking forward to a beautiful day. Here I am at Bear Creek, an offshoot of Feather River, as I move into the mountains. Just some gorgeous scenery here. I was wondering what that noise was. Look, it's a train. Whew, that was a long train. It just ended. It is about 9:30 in the morning here. The last time I came through this area, it was afternoon, and I might insert some footage here from then. It looked a bit different in the middle of a sunny afternoon, and it was about 90 degrees on that day, compared to about 60 right now. But it's so peaceful without the sound of the train. This is just the beginning of the entryway to the Feather River Valley. Well, I have to go through some more mountains before I get to the valley part, but it's just gorgeous here. There's a lot of kayaking and campgrounds on the outskirts of that valley, and I'm looking forward to driving through there because it's so absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm about 30 miles still away from where I'm headed, and it's a bit brisk out here, but I am enjoying it coming from the oven where I currently live. Probably take another 45 minutes to get there, if I don't stop along the way, which I probably will. But hey, that's the fun in exploring, right? It is so beautiful, so relaxing, and so invigorating out here. I absolutely love it. All right, come with me. Let's go do some exploring. Well, look what's up ahead, a rock wall. And I'm gonna go through that mountain. Fun, fun, fun. Well, this is one of the places I'm looking at, one of the pieces of property, 5 acres. It's a little more expensive than I wanted to pay for just land. However, it has a well already, it has a septic already, it has a building pad already. Pretty nice view, and it is in a, quote, subdivision, future subdivision, but each parcel, each lot is quite large. Like I said, this one's 5 acres. And the north is bordered by mountains and timberland. So, a lot of privacy. Sort of at the crest of a hill here, and a nice turnaround circle here. And then the road continues on. Nice paved road, which since it gets snow in the winter, that's a good thing. Very interesting. Septic is in, leach lines, and the view from here, where the house would be, is just amazing. Just enough trees were cleared for the house and the circular drive, and a little bit of area around it that could be used for a garden. Of course, I could clear more, but I love the look of all these trees. Let's walk down a ways. Sorry for the bouncing. This is sort of impromptu. I actually was just going to drive around and look at properties I found online from the car. But this one just presented an opportunity to get out and actually hike around it a little bit. And you know, it's about noon right now, and there is a lot of good sunshine here. So despite the trees all around, I could definitely be growing a great garden. Again, the septic and leach lines, which then curves around that way. So hey, this looks awesome, and I'm happy to see a brand new septic and leach lines. I have experience. My oldest son and I redid mine on my property recently. I sort of directed and helped figure it out, and he did the, hard physical work, which I super appreciated. But that's one thing I'm really considering. You can either get raw land and do this yourself, or live completely off grid, have a composting toilet and all that, but that's a little more difficult to get the zoning for that type of land. But if you're gonna get raw land, you have to do everything yourself: the well, the septic, the grading, everything. Whereas if I get land that's already been done for, not necessarily in an organized area like this one apparently is, you're going to pay more. I'm going to pay more for that land, but the work's already done. And in the end, I think probably that would be saving me money, let alone time and effort. I certainly never considered living in a subdivision. It's not really been something I've ever done in my life, other than a very brief exception once or twice. But with 5 acres and timberland all around me, I don't really think it would feel crowded. I mean, it's pure silence right now. Yeah. All right.
On to the next.
So after I saw that place, I went and saw several other properties, and I drove to several other areas, outlying areas, 10 or 15 minutes in this direction or that, and then a couple that were 20 minutes this way or that way. And I really learned a lot. I am so glad I did that. One of the places I ended up at was near a lake that, is, I guess, advertised locally for, people to kayak at and such, but very quiet. I mean, I was on the road to this very out of the way place for, it's probably a 10-minute drive from the main highway, and the lake was another mile and a half past where this property was. And I think I saw one car the whole time I was on that road, coming and going. So that's how far out it is. And yet it's only about 15 minutes at most, maybe even just 12, from that Mountain Valley town I originally looked at and fell in love with on my first trip. So this particular property that I ended up at and show you a clip of the area around it was one that I found online that featured a yurt. And I've never considered living in a yurt because I have realized in maybe the last 5 or 10 years that I'm actually a bit claustrophobic. And I've always known that I love lots and lots of windows. The more windows a house has, the better, in my opinion. And so this yurt, I don't think it has any windows, so that would be one reason I'd never live in it. But it would make great guest accommodations. Very, very heavily insulated, very large. It has all the amenities, but why would I consider a place like that? Why would I go look at a property like that when I actually have no desire to live in a yurt? Well, it's because I wouldn't be going there for the yurt. I was going to look at it because it was a property that had a well. It had a septic. In fact, the septic was listed to be able to handle a 5-bedroom house if you decided to put that there. It was quite a bit of acreage, 7.8 acres, and it had a very large deck attached to the yurt. I could totally see myself living on property like that in a motorhome, say, and any family that wanted to come along with me, if I had any of my younger kids who are older teens now that wanted to live in the yurt and go to the nearby community college for a couple of years, they could do that, while I decided where on those 8 acres I wanted to put a small manufactured home. As I mentioned in the last clip, buying raw land compared to buying land that already has a well and a septic on it, well, that's quite a choice people have to make. And at this point, though I'm not sure, I'm leaning toward, if I can find it, land that already has the well and septic there. So that's why I went and saw this yurt property. And I didn't actually take footage of the yurt because I wasn't sure I could do that. But if anyone's interested, leave me a comment and I'll send you the link to that property. Anyway, let's go take a look at the area now. It's beautiful. Just looked at another piece of land, and this one has to be probably the most remote that I've looked at so far today, but still a wonderfully beautiful area with quite the views. Look at these trees. Coming down from the mountains, still a glorious day in the sunshine with the trees changing colors. If you haven't been on a road trip lately, what's stopping you? Very often it's exactly what I need to reset, because it gets you out not just in nature but in different nature than you're used to seeing on a daily basis. And that is a great way to just, I think, be energized, come up with fresh ideas and fresh motivation. So Thanks for joining me today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it nearly as much as I did, and I will keep you filled in the coming days on how the search is going and on the projects I'm doing around here to get my place ready for sale. And in the next video, it's back to the garden and harvesting amaranth. Until then, maybe you should get out and take a road trip for yourself. Look at land, dream a little. Remember, you can create the life you want, whatever that might be. You just have to figure out what it is. And then, as I like to say, why not start right now? That's definitely the way I have to do it, little by little. In the end, we'll get there. You all have a great week, and I will see you again next time.